Militarily Speaking, episode 67, National Military Family Association.
This episode, we talk with Court Ogilvie, Chief Operating Officer with National Military Family Association.
Welcome to Militarily Speaking, brought to you by Armed Forces Bank. This is Tom McLean and Jodi Vickery. I am the Regional Military Executive for Armed Forces Bank, and Jodi, who will soon be celebrating her 4th anniversary with the company, is the Executive Vice President, Director of Consumer Banking.
Yeah, that's going to be a good year. 4 is my lucky number. So.
It is? What's your lucky number, Court?
Oh, wow. I'm going to go with 5.
I'm not going to go with 6 because that's too sequential.
It's going to be like Price is Right. You need to say 1.
Mine's 13.
Bid low.
Everything I own has the number
Swift.
13 in it. That's
That makes you weird. Again, welcome to our show. Here comes the focus.
Does that count as the opening segment?
No. We made it to the intro and you got off track.
All right, we're good.
Again, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you listening and learning all about our guest, Court Ogilvie with National Military Family Association. Court, I'm going to take just a second and share with our audience a little bit about you and your background, if you don't mind, because I think they'll find that interesting as context for our conversation. So Court is the Chief Operating Officer, as I mentioned, for the National Military Family Association, NMFA for short. In this role, he leads finance, human resources, and administration on behalf of the organization. Prior to joining NMFA, Court was the Executive Director of the Code of Support Foundation, a veteran-focused social services nonprofit. He previously served as the COO, or Chief Operating Officer, at National Military Family Association from 2016 to 2019. He has also run his own consulting practice, me too.
Yes.
And he spent more than 15 years at the American Red Cross in roles that included disaster relief, fundraising, and operations. His experience includes work with international governments and roles representing organizations on Capitol Hill and in local and national media. He's also been a guest lecturer at the University of Maryland School of Public Policy, at World Learning SIT Graduate Institute, and at conferences and symposiums. He started his career in the technology sector, where he worked in telecommunications and internet working. He is the child of a career Army aviator and engineer, and he received his BS in the management and a minor in English from Virginia Tech. Important fact.
I have a couple things to say about Court. Ready?
You?
So you're a boomer. You're what we call a boomerang associate.
Yes.
Right? You came back.
I've been here twice. That's exactly right.
You're like Howard Schultz.
I wanted to say that, but then
right?
I thought, gosh, I wonder if that's a typo. But no, you are in fact a boomerang.
And maybe I now have to pay Starbucks something because I said their name out. But the other thing, internet working, is that what it is? Is that right? What is that?
Internet working. So I was in the tech sector before I joined the Red Cross. I did a lot of international work in the tech sector, building internet backbones, and it was telecommunications work. So a little bit of a switch from what I'm doing now.
Very cool.
Yeah, but it sounds like you found your niche. But you also said you owned a consulting company, right?
I did.
Owned one. I did too.
Oh.
Effective podcast hosting.
That is not true.
No.
You can't be as cool as Court and I. So welcome, Court. It's an honor to have you here on our show. Thank you for being with us and for being willing to tolerate Tom for the next 30, 45 minutes or so.
I'm thrilled to be here.
I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about
the abyss. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about National Military Family Association.
Sure. So first, just thank you for including me and including us. We really appreciate the partnership and the chance to tell our story. So NMFA, we're the voice of military families. We're about 55 years old. We were founded in 1969. We're based in Virginia now, but we were founded in Annapolis, Maryland in 1969. And we're kind of all over the place now. We're military spouses for the most part, so we're spread across the country. We were started by a group of military spouses that saw something they wanted to fix. They were determined to do better by their widowed friends. So during the height of the Vietnam War, when a service member passed, the spouse lost all of their benefits. And that seemed wrong to us. And so we worked very hard to establish the survivor benefit plan so that benefits could continue when a service member passed away. And remember, this is an era during the height of the Vietnam War when women couldn't take out a credit card or open a bank account.
Yeah.
And so if a service member passed, then there was a lot they needed to be able to do that they just couldn't. Like if you needed to get home, what do you do? And so that's really where our founders were motivated. And they really wanted their peers to be as okay as possible when the worst happened. And really, that's a tradition that we strive to honor today. Our roots are in advocacy. We spent the first 30 years in advocacy, and then we launched our camp program and our scholarship program, Operation Purple Camp, and the Joanne Holbrook Patton Military Spouse Scholarship Program about 20 years ago as companion programs. We did that because that's what spouses told us they needed. And we're always looking to move into gaps in programming to try to fill gaps, to try to find what's missing.
It's a good solid backbone.
I remember a previous guest, remember Love Lives On. Does that ring a bell with you? There's an organization that was trying to get legislation about survivor benefits. Yeah. Court, you may or may not know this, but we are founding members of the Military Spouse Employment Partnership, as military MSEP for short, if we're going to go with acronyms. And we're trying to lean into spouse employment, transition services for service members, helping them be successful in their careers. You have scholarship programs, the recertification programs that you have, the child care resources, helping military spouses have their own independent career aspirations. So talk about those programs. It's almost like you've zoned in on a couple of areas, like you mentioned earlier during the introduction and what you said too about areas where your focus and advocacy are doing the most good. And talk about the military spouse side of the house.
Sure. So first, thanks for what you're doing through MSEP. I mean, it's an incredibly important partnership for us. For the sector, it's making a huge difference. And as you noted, spouse unemployment or spouse employment, to come at it from the other direction, is a huge challenge. And really, what we need to do, I think, as a country is move the numbers in like the hundreds of thousands. And that's what we're starting to do and starting to see. And NMFA has a role there for sure. So we have a spouse scholarship program, and that program is designed, quite obviously, based on the name, to help military spouses further their careers, to pursue certifications, to get time in clinical practice, pretty much everything they need to propel their careers forward. And I think the numbers tell the story. I mean, military spouse unemployment is really high, 21%.
21, isn't it? Is it still 21? That's what we heard too.
Well, I mean, yes, I think the latest numbers are there, but it's probably much higher just because it's underreported for a bunch of different reasons. And so we know that that's a huge challenge, and it's really going to take everybody working together to make a difference there. So as we look at the country now, two incomes really matter in order to be able to make ends meet for a whole lot of families. For a big group of families, that is a huge difference maker. And so we're really wanting to be a part of the solution for that, both through spouse employment, through scholarships, but also supporting military spouses in pursuing employment. One good example of what I'm talking about is, you mentioned that I'd been at NMFA once before. When I came to NMFA in 2016, I used to see resumes for jobs, and candidly, I wasn't really sure what to make of them. They would be someone who had a degree from a really competitive school, who then maybe volunteered for a while, and then maybe there was a gap, and then they worked at a big accounting firm, and then they did something else. And I thought, I don't know what to make of this. And it was translated for me by people with much more experience and visibility in our workforce, who explained that this is what a military spouse has to deal with all the time, because they're being moved around. They're in places where there are diplomatic rules that don't allow them to work. There are childcare challenges. There are a lot of things that are really working against them. And it's just really, we don't think people should have to, it shouldn't cost more to serve, is how I would put that. It shouldn't be this hard. And so we really want to be a part of the solution, and we welcome your partnership. And we know there are a lot of organizations across the sector that are focused on this, and it's going to take every one of us. There's way more need than there are organizations like ours that are focused this way. And it's something that we really need to do a better job of as a sector.
I agree. And I think as our listeners hear that message, and we as an organization at Armed Forces Bank, when we have 80% of our workforce that has a military connection, if you will, a lot of them are spouses, we know that they're going to be here 2 or 3 years, then they're going to go to their next duty station through PCSing. But from building a resume standpoint, you would call most people, you'd say, wow, they're a job hopper. Mm-hmm. But in the world of you, Court, understanding the nature of the lifestyle and what the military spouses have to endure, if anything, they're getting better skills because they're getting more exposure to different opportunities as they go either CONUS or they go international. They're building that resume, but employers have to give them the opportunity to work there. And that's the message, is we've got to employ more, bring them back into the workforce where they can contribute as well as they do.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely true. And I also think that underemployment is a real challenge. So the numbers are pretty telling there as well. And we've got a lot of data on our website. And I know there's a lot of data elsewhere that really outlines the challenge, but underemployment is a huge piece too. I will say, like, we have an amazingly capable workforce. And to your point, Tom, I'm sure some of that comes from all the skills that you acquire by moving around. On a personal level, it's true for me too. I did a lot of work for an international organization prior to coming to the nonprofit world. And I didn't really think about it at the time, but my military kid experience totally prepared me for that. You know, you sort of like come into a new place and there's a lot of unwritten rules, and you got to kind of step back and figure out what's going on in a way that nobody could really sort of articulate that. I mean, these are subtle lessons and skills, not to say that I'm a master at them, but I've gotten some exposure to them that I really value. And it's from my military kid existence.
Yeah. And those are skills that don't show up on a resume typically.
Yeah.
So that resilience, the ability to adapt, the ability to carry a whole lot on your shoulders and keep an even keel about you. I mean, yeah, that's all sort of the unwritten benefits. I love all of that as a military spouse. My husband's retired now, but when we were preparing for the podcast today and we were checking out all of the information on your website, there's a ton of it, militaryfamily.org. We want to make sure we get that in a few times.
Yeah.
It almost became sort of overwhelming to think about what we wanted to talk to you about today, because you really seem to take a holistic approach. And I know we've targeted in with Tom's last question on the spouse aspect, but you really seem to run the full gamut of stuff for adults, teens, spouses, every single part of the military family. And how, as an organization, do you decide, if you have to pick and choose, how do you decide where to focus your energy? How do you balance all of that and make sure that you really do keep the whole family in mind?
Well, so I think you hit it on the head about keeping the whole family in mind. The family can be such an afterthought sometimes in policy and programs. And I don't think it's intentional, but it does happen a lot. And so really what we're trying to do is tell the military family story at every opportunity, because it's a relevant one and it's an important one and it's an often forgotten one. And as for balance in our organization, honestly, I'm not sure we totally do because we have a lot going on, but we sure try. Yeah. And we're always prioritizing and reprioritizing based on what we see as the needs and based on what our constituents tell us their needs are. I think the best organizations stay agile, they adjust. We're trying to adjust to new environments all the time or new circumstances all the time. And I think I mentioned before, we're looking for what's missing. We're not always looking for what's broken. Sometimes we're finding things that are broken, but really we're looking for what's missing and we're trying to fill the gaps, and we're trying to address the handoffs are maddening. That's where a lot of the challenges start. I mean, in the medical community, they talk about continuity of care. We really want to be with the military family through their whole life's journey. And we want to be an organization that can advocate, but also can figure out who else is there and be a convener and bring people into the space. Because if you've got a need, you don't care who meets it, of course, like you just want it met. And we don't really care either. Like if there's an organization that can get there faster than us, then we want to support that organization, or we want to support that construct so that that family gets the support they need when they need it. And really, like, the piecemeal solutions don't work. The challenges of military life span geographies, organizations, programs, even families. So we want to make sure that we're offering a broad enough scope so that we can really address as many needs as possible.
Yeah, no, and that's such a great mindset. And we hear that, I think, to an organization with all the great people we've met doing this podcast, that everybody recognizes that there are big organizations like yours that are out there doing this good work. There might be smaller organizations, but your willingness and other organizations' willingness to sort of connect the dots and bring resources together. There's no pride of ownership and who gets to say, hey, we solved that problem. It's just, how do we solve that problem? And I think that serves military families really well.
Yeah, together we're stronger, as we say, Jodi. So yeah, totally agree.
Yes, we came back to it. And I
Wait,
went to your
together-
website, and the first thing that popped
together
up
we're-
was
I'm-
it said that.
That's right.
I'm going to Google
And
that.
Tom's
and
still
see-
trying to copyright it.
I'm going to
Take
see
it
who
from
the
here.
author. Who's the author of that?
Yes.
I'm going to go off script for a second, which is a shock for Jodi. But so Operation Purple Camp,
Yes.
right? Like you said, there was a little shift after 30 years or so of advocacy, and it's like the scholarships came to life. The Operation Purple Camp came to life. I'm sure there's a connection maybe with the color purple with the month of the military child.
If you mix all the colors together of the military, that's what you come out with purple.
Right. So talk a little bit about the camp, if you will.
So the Operation Purple camps are 3 weeks away, outdoor camps for military children. They're across the country, and they're really an opportunity for community for military children. So the curriculum is very much focused on the unique aspects of military family life. We try really hard to honor each family member. Really has a role in a military family, really in any family, and so we really want to honor that through Operation Purple. And it's a week of camp, a sleepaway camp that has a lot of outdoor activities, but it also has a lot of curriculum that is specific to what the military child brings to the household. And a lot of these military kids have sort of been promoted in their families because their parent is deployed and they're taking on enormous responsibilities. And we see this all the time in our camps where children that are taking enormously responsible roles as caregivers, as hidden helpers, as, helping care for their siblings, whatever it might be. And so these camps really become an opportunity for them to unplug and to swap notes, for lack of a better term, with other military kids and find this community, because so many kids are living off installation now that they may not have a lot of opportunity to meet other military kids. And they've got it through Operation Purple. And there's military family life counselor support, and there's a lot of sort of wraparound support included in the camp model, but it's also just a whole lot of fun when it's a chance for a kid to unplug. And then there's another benefit, and that is the parent gets a chance to catch up on something probably too. So it's more than just a week away. It's also a chance for everybody to reset. And the parents have community too. The drop-off day and the pick-off day are quite extraordinary to see. You can see these parents are forming relationships and friendships and have a chance to compare notes with another parent in a similar circumstance. And that's really, I think, a part of the Operation Purple magic as well, is that it's not just for the kids, it's also for the adults. And there's a lot of benefit that even we're still realizing and capturing ourselves. This year, for the first time, we did a kind of a return to the camp rendezvous after the fact for families to get together in San Diego. And it was very well attended, and kids had a chance to continue friendships and parents had a chance to solidify theirs.
That's very cool. Very cool. It made me think of when the last 6 years of my husband's service, he didn't live at home with us. So we didn't see him all that often. And my son was probably 5 or 6 years old at the time. And
the other
you
was
didn't,
3-ish, 4.
I didn't.
2.
I know Maddie would have been like 1. So she was a baby.
Yeah.
So she doesn't remember a ton of it, but he would think of himself as the man of the house. So even little things to hear you say they need a chance to unplug, like we'd go somewhere and there might be somebody sketchy, like looking at our family without the dad there. And he would like get between me and the sketchy person and try to be the strong man. I'm like, dude, you're not stopping anybody. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
But I love the courage there, bud. But you don't realize in the moment how much they probably do take on to their little shoulders. So
absolutely. It's amazing. And that's our future force too. Like the number of children from military families, I saw the stats recently. I think it's over 50% of teens from military families plan to serve. And in the general population, it's less than 1%. It's like 0.6%.
Yeah, that makes sense. You hear about there's families and generations of service. That's not at all uncommon.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's our future fighting for. I mean, there's bunches of reasons to be invested in teens, but that's another one for sure.
More brand ambassadors out there with the kids that could promote it to the general population in their circles and their schools, right? Is that if they've walked in it, they can share the stories about it too. But everybody can find out about Operation Purple on www.militaryfamily.org, right? There's more information out there for our audience.
That's right. There's quite a bit. There's everything you need to know about how to apply, when it happens, what the criteria are, all of those things.
You've got a lot of ways, almost a plethora of ways for people to give to the organization, right? There are so many options that a person or company would be hard-pressed to not figure out a way to participate. So at least you open the doors for opportunities in different ways, whether it's a financial or volunteer or other ways to give to your organization. Why are there so many, and why are you so creative about it? And we'll give you all the credit as Chief Operating Officer that put all those things in place for them. But
you better take the credit, Court, because if not, Tom's going to figure out a way to take the credit.
Good call.
You know why? Because together we're stronger. So,
oh my gosh, this Court stays till the end of this. So it's going to be a miracle. As a military spouse, I understand how unpredictable life can be. Whether it's a PCS move or just everyday expenses, money can be tight. That's why it's so important to have a checking account that works for you.
Armed Forces Bank offers our Access Freedom checking accounts designed with military families in mind. If you're looking for no monthly fees, early military pay, and no fee access to over 38,000 ATMs nationwide, we've got you covered. Plus, with our user-friendly mobile app, managing your money is a breeze, no matter where you're stationed.
And with about 75% of our team affiliated with the military, Armed Forces Bank really understands the challenges faced by the military and their families. We've been supporting military families for over 100 years, so you know we'll always have your back.
If you're ready for a checking account that's as flexible as you are, head over to afbank.com or visit a branch near you. Armed Forces Bank, serving those who serve. Member FDIC, $25 opening deposit and e-statements required. Direct deposit required for early military pay. Closing new accounts within 90 days of opening will result in a $25 early closure fee. Message and data rates charged by your mobile phone carrier may apply. So how do you expect, what's your expectation for those that want to engage in supporting you? What's your recommendation?
Well, so we want to meet people where they are on that, and every little bit of help matters. And certainly we run on donations from the general public and from foundation and corporate partners. And so that's how our programs happen. So our camps are free to military children. There's no cost to military children to attend the camps, and our scholarships are free as well. So we would love that support. And it's not for us, it's for the people we serve. So that's a very important distinction that I think sometimes can get lost. And there are multiple ways to do that. There are donations, there's planned giving, workplace giving, all that sort of thing. If anybody's interested in supporting, they could reach out to me directly, and I'd be happy to talk them through that. But then there's also what we do for our constituents, and that might be what you're referencing too. And there's a whole lot of information out there that's really intended to help military spouses and military families navigate challenges. We've got a lot of information about childcare and employment, and you name it. There are a whole lot of different resources that are available online on paid family leave, military family news, licensing, certification, you name it. It's all out there. And that's really because we want to meet people where they are, and we want to engage any way that we can. And a lot of it is about storytelling. I think making this life accessible to people is critical to engendering support. Nobody really understands what it's like to be a military spouse, except for a military spouse, of course. But the more accessible we can all make that, the better off I think we'll be in terms of creating a good support structure for military families.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. And that's true. You don't understand it until you're walking a mile in their combat boots, so to speak. So I know you probably don't want to talk about you, but I want to talk about you. You like to put the spotlight on your team, I'm sure.
It sounds like a Toby Keith song.
Yeah, no, that's I want to talk about me.
Oh, all right. Well,
that's your theme song. That's Tom's theme song.
There you go. With
so
the bad
I want to talk
attitude
about
again.
Court, and I want to understand in a nonprofit world, it's a little different sometimes. And you were obviously drawn back to it, coming back to NMFA. Talk about your leadership style within the organization. How do you help the team achieve everything that you're laying out here for our audience today?
Sure. Yes.
Court, think about that for a second. Before you answer, here's what somebody said about you. You ready?
Oh.
Yeah.
He knows you well enough now to say, oh no, what's coming?
He has a wealth of experience and professionalism. Court managed the program staff and multiple vendors. He's extremely hardworking and detail-oriented. He has the unique ability to add value tactically and strategically. He excels at gap analysis, needs assessments, anticipating trends, and is always willing to pitch in wherever needed. I mean, if that's not the perfect answer, you can use that and call it your own, Court. But yeah, let's go. That'll be a good segue into the leadership style of Court Ogilvie, right?
Yeah, and then we'll put the team on and they can give you like a 2-minute rebuttal and it'll all fall apart. How's that?
Yeah, Tom's going to print that out basically and frame it in his own office like somebody said it about him.
Together with smarter. Yeah.
There you go. So my leadership style, here's what I would say, and I hope that the team would say this. I see that I have 4 roles, and that is set strategy, identify priorities, or cast tie-breaking votes when there's an impasse. And then the one that sometimes surprises people is I also think it's my job to get people their next job. And I'm pretty committed to that. And I don't really want to become a job placement service for other organizations. Like, that's not really what that means, but I want to invest in our people. People invested in me in ways that were meaningful in my career and took chances on me. And I want to do that forward, not because it's somehow, I mean, I do think it's the right thing to do, but I also think it's an effective thing to do. And we've got an amazing team here and an amazing workforce. And I've had the great pleasure of working alongside some incredible people in my career. And I just want to do what I can in wherever I am in any structure to try to help people move themselves forward. And people don't always believe that. And sometimes they're like, you have to have trust for that to work well. But in practice, you want people to come to you when they're interested in something instead of coming to you the day that they move on or that you're at a tougher spot. And so I'm really committed to that. And I think it's a really important thing that any leader should strive to do today.
Pretty good answer.
I know.
I wrote it down.
So we've circled around this topic about teens and the whole family and keeping it cohesive throughout that journey. But I noticed just in your website, because like you said, there's probably a lot of white papers, a lot of research, a lot of resources that are on your website. But there's been a lot of research, it seems, in the past few years on military teens. So if you could do a high-level summary of what that research is telling you and share that with our audience, and just studying the dynamics of a military family, but in focus on the teen side of the house for that.
Sure. So we do a survey every year. We have Bloom is one of our programs, and Bloom was founded by and created by military kids as a community, and it just became a part of NMFA in the last year and a half. They've been sort of like loosely affiliated with us, but now they're a part of us. And these are some amazing, I don't even want to say future leaders. They're leaders now. They're really remarkable kids doing this, remarkable teenage kids doing this work. And they've created this community and they have generated a lot of good, helpful information about the military teen experience and what's unique about it. And we've talked about some of that already in this conversation, but there are some unique things. I mean, I think on some level, people, I think, can make the case quite aptly that teens are teens are teens. And I guess that's kind of sort of true, but there are some pressures that military teens deal with and some circumstances that are different. And so we do a survey every year and it's on our website. Last year's survey is on our website and the new one is just coming out. And really a top line summary is that some of our teens are struggling and the numbers are going up. And we're concerned about that. And we're paying a lot of attention to it. We think it's one of the more significant challenges that the sector is facing. I mean, yes, teens are our future force, sure. But on top of that, again, we just don't feel like families should have to sacrifice more in order to be military families. And so we want to make sure that not just camps, but really the whole of our programs are focused on helping teens, taking care of addressing those needs. And certainly there are other things that feed into that: financial security, the number of moves, the hidden costs of moves, all of those things are factors But the top line is that we see that number going up in ways that is concerning to us and to many others in the sector too.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that would be the case. And so maybe teens is one of the three. But if you were to think about what are the big three issues facing military families as a whole, maybe that teenager concern is up there. I don't know, but what would your top three list be?
It is actually, the well-being of our teens is absolutely on that list. And then I think next for us is financial security. I mean, these are not surprises, I'm sure, to you. And I appreciate you spending the time to learn more about many of those that you serve in your businesses. There are a lot of hidden costs. The math isn't really working for military families. You're probably familiar with the House Armed Services Committee, convened a committee to study military quality of life. There are a bunch of recommendations there. We're working hard to support those, like pay raise for junior enlisted, base allowance for housing changes to make that a full 100%. Those kinds of things really, we think, matter to military families and will help to move the needle. So that's really like number two. And then number three is related, and that's food insecurity. We see a lot of that. And yes, it's absolutely tied to financial security. It's also tied to spouse unemployment. These things are all interrelated, and they're all really, it's a cascade. So, counseling and lots of other programs don't do as much if you don't have food on the table. So there's kind of a classic hierarchy there, but these are all interrelated things. And this gets back to one of your earlier questions that I think you asked, Jodi. We do offer a lot of different programs, but it's because these are cross-cutting issues in a lot of cases, and we want to try to make sure that we get it as we get at as much of them as we can.
Yeah, no, it all is very tied together. It's like that ball of twine. Like, where do you start and
where's it end?
Yeah.
Right.
But your food insecurity one, which I think Jodi and I, as we talk to guests and as we look through the lens of what families are experiencing, and we have a good relationship with Stronghold Community Food Pantry, who's putting up food pantries around the country, working with Washington, D.C. to put more. Unfortunately, they have to find out more ways to solve that crisis, because one in 4 military families have experienced food insecurity. That if it's that big of an issue, the more you talk about it, Court, the more it helps the cause, if you will, the legislators or the advocacy that happens by other organizations to solve for that, whether it's even at MFAN, right? Military Family Advisory Network, that group.
I do. They're a great partner of ours, doing wonderful work.
And they're trying to solve that too. And so the more we talk about it in whatever avenue we select or you select, it's a good thing, because then it becomes top of mind with people to solve it. Because that's just like veteran homelessness. That seems to be a prevalent issue these days too.
Yes. Yeah. And MFAN is a great partner, and they've generated a lot of data that's really informed. And you said 1 in 4, it's actually 50% across military teens.
No.
Military teen data says 50%. So it's high.
I'd say it's 50% too high.
I agree.
Yeah.
Completely.
So you think about, I can't imagine probably the number of families that you've interacted with, worked through, that have been struggling with any number of the many issues, or maybe multiple of them. But is there a family that sticks out to you that, like, when you wake up in the morning, you think, oh, that's my why. That's why I'm doing this.
Sure.
You're smiling.
The why.
There is.
You always have to ask the why. Yeah.
I'm a big why kind of girl. I like to know
you
the
can't
why.
just take it.
No, nothing at face value. I want to know Court's why.
Well, so I have kind of two stories to relate that I think are relevant, and I'll keep it brief. So the first is, when I was at the Red Cross, I was fortunate to be invited to the Joint Civilian Orientation Conference, which was a week-long exposure to the military for industry leaders. And there was a lot there were jets and jet helicopters, and there was a lot going on that week. But what really stood out to me that week was I met a 19-year-old airman who was getting ready to ship out. And I didn't get to meet his family, but he talked about them a lot. And he talked about wanting to get his apartment furnished before he was deployed. And when I came off of that course, I thought, I want to get more involved in the sector, and I want to get more involved in causes that are focused on the military, and sort of get back to my roots as a military kid. And that's really how I ended up at NMFA. And I think about that young airman all the time. That's part of my why. And then a more recent story that I think is relevant to your question is I was at a camp in North Carolina this summer, and we were introducing ourselves to the campers, and the campers, they don't really need to hear a bunch of adults talk. They want to go kayaking and have fun.
Yeah, right. I'm going to the lake.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm keeping it brief, and I'm saying, I'm a military kid myself, and I was born overseas. But before I get the next sentence out, a kid in the middle of this crowd of 100 kids said, "Where were you born?" And I said, "Japan." Mm-hmm. And he yelled back, "Konnichiwa." And then all the kids that were near him sort of descended that had lived in Japan, descended on him. And this little community happened like right in front of me. Well, I thought, wow, this is what these camps are. I mean, this is way bigger than one organization, and it's way more than just this one thing. I mean, it's really this community that we at NMFA and many others are trying to create that is important and worthy and worthwhile. And so when I get stuck in traffic or like have a bad day at work, I keep a few photos of our constituents around just to sort of remind myself of like, oh yeah, this is actually like why we do this. And seeing that community form and community building among kids happens so fast. It's just like mind blowing. I mean, that kid had like, I don't know, a half dozen other kids around him, and they were all catching up for the remainder of my boring little intro remarks for sure. And my guest is for the next week. So longer.
Yeah. Instant best friends with a shared experience.
Yeah. Remarkable.
For sure.
Court, we're winding down. We did cover a lot of ground. And open it up for one more comment from you. If there's anything that we didn't cover, didn't highlight for you that wants a little bit more attention, then do that. You can't. Maybe what you should cover is how you think the Reds can beat the Cubs next season.
Well, I'm hopeful.
Yeah, we all have a strategy of hope, Court, but it doesn't always work.
I think that's right.
But no, anything else we didn't cover about your wonderful organization?
I really just want to thank you. I want to thank you for the opportunity to tell our story. And like I said, together we're stronger is not a tagline for us. I mean, we really want to like work across the sector, and we just appreciate the chance to tell our story. And we're really grateful that you all and a lot of organizations are saying, what about the families? That it's not an afterthought, that it's an important part of the equation here. And I just appreciate that you're bringing attention to really important issues.
They are very, very important. And we're thankful that you were here and able to share that with us today. But we aren't going to let you run away quite yet.
Is it time for
it's time to play the Military Minute.
Oh no!
So he's listened to an episode, so he knows what's coming. Right?
No, he didn't go to the end of it. That's the problem. Yeah, he's talking.
No, I'm sure he did. He probably listened to it 3 times. So Military Minute is a lovely little game that we like to play. At least Tom and I like to play it. And so last podcast we had somebody on that was from Operation Deploy Your Dress.
Odie Whitey.
Yeah. And so in the spirit of that, our trivia question for our audience was about military balls. And so it was, in what year did the military ball originate?
Oh, wow.
And so you can Court, wager, I guess.
Yeah, Court,
we won't leave you hanging.
It's an open game here. What do you think?
Oh, wow.
You have one in 2024 guesses.
It happened AD.
I think the staff would be like, our team would be laughing right now because I'm like the worst military culture expert on the planet. So
I don't think anybody but Tom knew the answer to this, to be fair.
I want to hear a guess.
I'm going to guess 1919.
Whoa.
Is that close?
Well, you were 24 years off.
Okay, I was not close.
My math is super hard in my head. Well, you were closer than if you'd said like 2000. So
remember we heard like military balls were like adult proms.
They are. Yeah, I've been to lots of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you stress and you diet.
And then you take a picture. The next year you take a picture. Then you put the picture behind it.
So the right answer, Tom, focus, is 1895. So if you are in our audience and when that podcast dropped, you put 1895 in the comments like the smarty pants that you are. Watch for your name to drop and you could have been selected to win $50 for yourself and $50 for a charity of your choice.
Just for the record, Court started the answer with 18.
I know. I
did.
was like excited for a second. I thought he was going to
I
say
know.
18
He had a
something.
1 in 99 shot at that
thinking
point. But yeah,
I bet $1, Bob. So this week's Military Minute, you totally can't answer this. I know you're going to know the answer. And if you don't, it would be kind of weird. But so for our audience.
well, he'll have to ask his team about the answer.
So the Court's going to know this all by himself.
All right, let's go.
So don't give the answer away, though. What is the name of the university and the mascot for the university where Court graduated with a Bachelor in Science? We said it maybe in the intro, so
Kind of. I mean,
hit
we
the
said
back button
yeah.
and see if you can find the answer. So if you're smart and you listened to the beginning and you paid attention, you can drop your answer in the comments, and you too could be selected at our next drawing for $50 for you and $50 to a charity of your choice.
The only way this question is going to work is if what I found out about Court, about his university, is true.
Well, it's in the intro, so I hope it's true.
I know. But that's what they're going to have to.
And
That's
he
what they're
provided the bio.
But that's they're going to have. See, they're going to have to figure that out, though, right?
The love. Oh my gosh, Court.
So
I'm speechless.
Yeah, same. Welcome to my everyday.
I want to say your website one more time for our audience, and then we'll close it out.
It's militaryfamily.org. That's us.
Excellent.
We'd love to see you there.
Thank you, Court. Thank you very much. If you enjoyed today's episode, I think Jodi did, go out to afbank.com and subscribe to the show. Also, make sure to rate us, leave us a comment on your favorite podcast platform, such as Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And Court, we are on YouTube as well, so you can find us anywhere, everywhere.
Tom thinks he's famous.
And you know what? Together, we're stronger.
Next time you see Tom, he's going to have a T-shirt that says that.
Together, we're stronger. Hashtag.
That's how I'll be able to find you.
Yeah, and on the back, I'm sure it'll say something like thought leader.
But
Anyway, it was a pleasure to meet you, Court. And
nice job. Very well done.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.
Copyright Armed Forces Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. All non-Armed Forces Bank-owned apps, websites, company names, and product names are trademarks or registered trademarks of their respective owners. Their mention does not imply any affiliation with or endorsement by Armed Forces Bank of them or their products and services. They are merely used as examples of the many available apps, companies, and websites that offer similar services. Before using any app or website, you should carefully review the terms of use, data collection, and privacy policy. Apps may have an initial cost or in-application purchase features. This information is general in nature and is not intended to be legal, tax, or financial advice. Although Armed Forces Bank believes this information to be accurate, it cannot ensure that it could change. Statements or opinions of individuals referenced herein are their own, not Armed Forces Bank. Consult an appropriate professional concerning your specific situation and respective governing bodies for applicable laws, such as irs.gov for current tax law. Armed Forces Bank, the Armed Forces Bank logo, and the Militarily Speaking logo are registered trademarks of Armed Forces Bank.